Evening, everybody. How are we? Monday evening. Hope you're all well and tuning in. Looking forward to speaking to Mr. Madigan tonight. Thank you to Rima Sawoma, who are obviously sponsoring it as well. And for EJ Menswear, the lads, Mark, Colton, Tommy, Eamon, all the boys. So we're just waiting for him to get logged in. And we'll get started. But hope you're all keeping well. Monty, thumbs up. How are you, pal? And hope everyone's in good form as well. The lockdown restrictions eased a little bit, but we're still very much in lockdown, so hopefully we have a bit of crack. I'm looking forward to speaking to Ian, to be honest with you. And here he comes now. Get logged in to connect up. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to speaking to him. He would have been a player I would have admired for a long time, so we try and delve into a bit of his stories. Ian, how are you doing?
What's the crack?
How are you getting on? You okay?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, mate, for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on. We've been kind of having these chats for the last probably 7-8 weeks now. Obviously, we've all been in lockdown, so it's been really tough for everybody. But people seem to be enjoying the chats. I've been doing a few on my own page, doing a few for EJ Menswear as well. So it's a big thank you to you, really, for coming on.
Happy days. No, looking forward to it. And see if people are already saying, looking for a bit of GAA chat.
Well, we can get on to the GAA chat later on if you want, but we'll stick to the rugby for now, and maybe a bit of football, or we'll dip into all sorts. But I suppose the one question we're kind of asking everybody at the very start, because of the situation we find ourselves in, is just how has lockdown been for you, Ian?
Yeah, to be honest, it hasn't been too bad at all. We were very lucky in Bristol. They saw it coming and they were very well organised. So it was around the middle of March. The UK was about 2 weeks behind on the lockdown compared to Ireland. So they basically distributed all the gym equipment. So I had Brian Byrne living with me here. He was playing in Leinster. He's come over to Bristol on loan. So we got a good bit of stash. Like we got like squat stands, a bench, some dumbbells, some plates. And then there's actually scaffolding on the outside of our house. They're painting the house. So we're able to use that as well. And then we can still run nearby. Like there's pitches nearby that we can run in twos in. And to be honest, we've just been training, four times a week, doing like a good gym session and a good run. And that's been, keeping us going, because I suppose when you're playing week in, week out, you don't actually get to do that much hard training. Like, you'd only really do maybe 2 good weight sessions and 2 good pitch sessions, and then you'd be prepping for a match. So to be able to get 4 of each a week, you'd notice a big difference in how your body would be feeling. So I've enjoyed that side of it. And then I suppose on the softer side, I wasn't too hot a cook before the coronavirus came in, and Anna's put me under big pressure to learn. So she gets her toast and an egg in the morning now. She's delighted. So.
That's as far as it's gone so far, yeah?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You didn't fancy going out helping the painters with the scaffolding or anything, no?
No, they haven't been doing a tap themselves.
You just mentioned Ian, and obviously we've been looking in from across here, and people are saying the government have handled it quite well, and obviously the UK are getting a lot of criticism really for the way they handle things. And obviously you've been speaking to, I presume, family and friends back home when all this was kicking off. Was there any kind of thoughts in your head or your mind amongst your family to maybe come back to Dublin, or were you happy to stay over there for duration?
Yeah, I think it would have very much been on the situation I was in. Like where we're living is, it's a quiet road. It's not like I was sharing an apartment block in London playing for London Irish, for example, and they go, here, look, I think it's best you head home here. Yeah, and the other thing was, I had 3 months left on my contract, so I didn't know, could we be back in 3 weeks' time? If I flew back to Ireland, would I have to quarantine for 2 weeks before seeing my parents, then have to quarantine again for another 2 weeks to come back to the UK? So it never really was too great an option, because I would have had to move in, either back in with my parents or with my brother. And I suppose I didn't want to put my parents at risk, so they thought it was best that I probably just stayed over here. So, yeah.
Yeah, very good. But I suppose that's the one thing, even from speaking to all the lads that we've had on, and people and for everyone in general, is just the uncertainty around everything. But
Yeah.
hopefully now we're kind of coming out the other side. The phase plans are in place. Obviously, the Bundesliga kicked off at the weekend, so that might kickstart some other sports as well. But I just want to talk to you mainly, and obviously about your career and stuff. But I'm going to take it right back to the early days with Blackrock. And was it always rugby, or did you play other sports as well?
No, like, to be honest, when I was going through primary school, Gaelic football would have been my first sport. So I played up with Crokes, up in Stillorgan in Dublin, and I was very lucky. I had a great team and I had great coaches, and they really kind of, I don't know, managed my personality at the time. I was, would have been, a bit outspoken, and they had some big personalities within the team, and they managed to kind of get us all to gel really well together. And I absolutely love playing, football with Crokes, and I was lucky we won the All Ireland Fela, which I think is under 12s or under 13s. But look, it's a big competition at the time, and it's really well run by the GAA. But it was only when I moved to Blackrock, when it would have been 12 going on 13, and that's when the rugby started ticking over. I was only doing mini rugby up till then, which would have just been on Sundays for probably 6 or 7 months of the year, and then playing a bit with my brother in the back garden. But Gaelic would have been probably 2, 3 or 4 times a week, and I would have played it in primary school as well. So,
okay.
Yeah, and look, I found it really stood to me. Like, I think the skills you get from Gaelic football, like, they cross over into so many sports. High ball catching, your fitness, how to lose a defender, tracking a defender, all that kind of stuff is absolutely brilliant. So,
yeah, obviously you're very, very technical in the way you play and taking the kicks and stuff, so I could actually picture you being good. Actually, and now I might get in trouble for saying this, right? But I wouldn't be the biggest rugby fan in the world. I obviously watch it and I admire the players in Ireland and all that kind of stuff. But I have greater admiration just for the number 10s and nobody else, because they're, to me, the only skillful ones on the pitch in rugby.
Yeah, it didn't transfer across to GAA for me. It wasn't too hot a free taker, I'll tell you that for nothing. But
Okay.
Yeah, no, look, I love playing it, and it's such a great sport. It's actually a sport I see. When I finish up playing rugby, I'd love to go back and play Gaelic
really, yeah,
at a social level. Yeah, it just. It would really appeal to me, because your body can still do it into your 30s, whereas rugby, when the body starts giving up, it's tough to be playing rugby when you're 37, 38. But I think you could play socially at Gaelic football. I'd do it over soccer anyway. I'm absolutely useless at that.
So you mentioned there, once you moved to Blackrock, that was, I suppose, when the rugby started taking over. And I often look in now at the school's rugby and how big it is. But I don't think people realise just how big and important it is. Like, it almost, even for you so young, obviously school, your education, but the rugby almost seems to take over, and especially when you see them to get to the final stages, the big finals in Donnybrook, they're on the telly, all that kind of stuff. So at what point did it start to get really serious for you?
I suppose it would have been in third year. So like the main cup years, third and sixth year. In third year, with a good team, and it's a cup year. So the training is, you're going hard after school every day, Monday, Tuesday, and then you'd have a game probably every other Wednesday, train again Thursday, maybe half a session on a Friday, play again Saturday. And that's, all year through until the cup comes around. And then look, there's great hype around the cup. It's brilliant. The whole school gets behind you. And, if you're lucky enough to get to the final, you get 4 big days out. And that was brilliant. And then off the back of that year, then I was on the seniors when I was in fourth year. So it would have been, maybe 15. And, that's a ramp up again. Like, you're looking at, they're trying to do more strength and conditioning with you there. So you might be going in to do gym work in the morning before school. There could be maybe a bit of skills at lunchtime. And then you'd be training pretty hard for, the guts of, I don't know, maybe an hour and 10, 20 minutes after school. And then building up really to the cup campaign, which starts at the end of January. So it was pretty full on for when I was in fourth, fifth, and sixth year, and then when the cup campaign would end, you'd be looking to make maybe the Leinster under 18s and or the Irish schools it would have been. So that would take you up, another couple of months, and then obviously that would lead you into your exams, having not done a whole lot of study.
And in terms of, I suppose, obviously, as I said, it's your education and the playing side of it in school, but it's almost seen really, is that the breeding ground really for the likes of Leinster, Munster, all those kind of provinces? Because how does it work in terms of I suppose in soccer, you would go on trials with clubs.
Yeah.
Would that be a case of obviously the Leinster staff and scouts or whoever coming looking at you, and that's really your place to shine, and then schools matches?
Yeah, like, in fairness to Blackrock and a lot of the rugby schools in Dublin, at the end of the day, they are schools, and like they want to get you through school and on to, whether it's a trade or off to university. And if you're not cutting it in school, like they won't let you out to train.
Okay.
Simple as, and they'll put you in detention on a Saturday, and you'll miss matches. It's
okay.
There's no illusions that it's education first, and I can only speak for Blackrock because I was there, but it's a brilliant school, and that's that part of it. But at the same time, like if they think guys can make it in sport, they'll encourage them, and whether regardless of what it is, whether it's golf, cycling, or rugby, they'll let you know, look, this is an option for you. And the school were great with that. With me, they connected me with people who were playing professionally and kind of gave me an idea of what would be ahead of me if I did go down that route, and what college course to do that could complement it and that kind of thing, which was, brilliant. And I look back on that and I'm very grateful to the school for how well they looked after me. I suppose when I was going through school, I wouldn't have known a clear picture of how I would have got into the Leinster squad.
Okay.
But as you're kind of getting closer to, the end of your time in sixth year, that kind of pathway becomes clearer. But what I'd say is now, kids who are in, third and fourth year in school probably have a good idea of what route they'd have to go down because of, how big the game's gotten in the last 10 years. But basically, like, you'd want to be playing well for your school side. That's the first thing. And then ideally you want to be playing representative for your province. So let's say under 18 schools, under 19 schools, and then pushing to make the under 18s Irish schools, or under 18 clubs, or under 19 clubs, or under 19 schools. They'd be the four, like, national to be represented when you're in school. Now, it could have changed since I was there, but then when you finish school, the main options are to get into the sub-academy in Leinster, which is a group of about 20 players, or to go directly into the academy, which would... The academy work directly with the senior squad. They do a lot of their trainings with them. And effectively, you'd be signing into, if you got into the academy, you'd be signing a 3-year deal, which would guarantee you 3 years in there, I suppose. And then that would move you on to a development contract, which could be a year or two, and then hopefully on to a full senior contract. So, like, there is a clear pathway there for you. And then tied into that then is obviously the Irish under-20s is, the big competition when you leave school. So I was lucky enough, I had 2 years at that, which I really needed. I wasn't ready to come out of school and turn professional at 18. Physically, I wasn't ready. My game was nowhere near good enough. I needed those kind of probably 30 games between 2 Six Nations and 2 World Cups under my belt to kind of find my feet and realise what I needed to work on and kind of go from there. So, like, the underage setup was brilliant for me, and one that I'd always encourage players to go down.
When you finished in with the school and obviously all that stuff is on the horizon, was that the path you took directly into the academy route, or did you go into the sub-academy?
I went into the sub-academy. So there's a small difference. When I was in the sub-academy, we were still integrated a small bit with the senior team. Now, the sub-academy is unpaid. The academy, you get paid. Now, at the time when I was there, it was maybe 4,000 over a year.
Okay.
But, like, that's a big help now. If you're going through college at the time, that it's $4,000 you wouldn't have to get a part-time job, or, if you had to lend it off your parents, it saves you having to pay it back, I suppose. I think it's definitely gone up since I left. I think it's maybe around 8 or 10 grand now. And then, so you're in with the group of lads who are the same age as you. Most of them will be in college, and it's great. Like, it's very special. You're all aiming towards the same thing, and on every given week there could be 2 or 3 you called up to train with the senior squad, which would be really exciting. And then you'd be all aiming as a group to work towards the under-20s at the time. That would be the big thing you're working towards. So, like, during the summer would be the Leinster under-20s, then throughout the winter would be building to the Six Nations, and then you'd have a World Cup. So the World Cup for us was over in Japan actually, which was brilliant. So it was pretty cool having the likes of that.
And I suppose then, once you did kind of make the breakthrough, as you said, you were excited there, you're in amongst the first team players. Then you went on a major debut, and I suppose that was the time really when the whole Leinster success thing was really beginning to take off. So to go in with the likes of, I suppose, Brian O'Driscoll and Sexton and all these lads, Schmidt, I think, was the manager at the time. So for you as a young lad coming into that environment, it must have been an unbelievable experience starting off.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant. Like I played under Cheika for kind of the first season where I got like a handful of games maybe, and then I actually played for him at the end of one of the games. It was a bit of a dead rubber before they played in one of their European games. So I had like 2 seasons of experiencing Cheika, and he was brilliant. Like, and at the time, looking up to a guy like that with such presence and what he was trying to do at Leinster at the time, turning them around from, what would have been perceived as kind of the soft underbelly that could have been there to turning them into the machine that they've turned into for the last 10 odd years. But it was really Joe Schmidt when he came in. I hadn't really worked closely with a head coach professionally yet, because I was still in the academy under Cheika. I was working with the academy coaches mainly and the underage coaches. It was really Joe who came in, and he was the first guy who I got to work closely with, and I was so lucky, to have a coach of that caliber coming in. I think I was maybe 21 at the time, and it was an absolute godsend. It was the making of my career. If he hadn't have come in, maybe it wouldn't have been the career I've had. So I was great. He just was a real empowering coach. Aside from knowing so much himself, he wants you to come to him with ideas and talk them through. And he'd really challenge you. He wouldn't be afraid to really criticize areas of your game, but he'd always leave you feeling good about yourself and wanting to improve. It was never to put you down or anything like that.
So going into that environment, and it's good to hear you speaking so highly of Joe Schmidt, and obviously we'll get to the Ireland stuff as well, and as your career progressed in. But you have Johnny Sexton kind of in that position, but you're a young lad hoping to break through and all that kind of stuff. Did you ever feel as though, I suppose when you are young and maybe a bit brash and confident, you're thinking, I will become the number 10? Or did you always feel as though with him in that position, it was going to be a really, really difficult task?
Yeah, to be honest, I'd never really have gone down the route of comparing myself to Johnny. Johnny's Johnny, and he's brilliant. The way he plays the game is fantastic. His game management, his goal kicking, how he brings other players into the game. But I played the game differently, and my view was I just want to be the best that I can possibly be. And if that gets me picked, great. And if it doesn't, so be it. But I wasn't going to go down the route of trying to copy Quay Cooper or Johnny Sexton or Dan Carter. I definitely would have looked at aspects of their game and gone, I'll try and do my best to be as good as possible at that. But I suppose when I broke through into the Leinster squad, you're happy initially, to just be making the 23 and coming off the bench, and then you start starting, and you get hungry for that, and then you're trying to get into the Irish squad and trying to push forward that way, and you're subbing a few games, then suddenly you're starting a few games. It's very hard to then go back to subbing again,
of course,
with your province. So that's when the time comes and you're in your mid-20s and you're kind of going, well, I'm ready to be the starter in a club, and I want to challenge myself to be that guy. So that's kind of where I got to. But I look back on my time in Leinster so fondly. It's a brilliant club, and it was great.
Yeah, but when you're there and you're fully right, I played football myself, and kind of your worth, and you often feel, I'm ready to go here, I should be playing instead of him. So of course it's frustrating when you're not playing. As you said, throughout those couple of successful years initially, and you're winning the Champions Cup, you're coming on in finals, making a huge impact. When Johnny left then to go away are you thinking this is it now, this is my chance? But then obviously Jimmy Goppert is coming in. Or are you thinking this is healthy competition? Or are you kind of looking, saying, what's going on here? I'm the main man now.
Yeah. But the 2 years when Jimmy came in, I absolutely loved those 2 years. I think I played over 50 times for Leinster in the 2 years. So like every week you're either, starting at 10, starting at 12, maybe at 15, or as you're coming off the bench, influencing games. And we won the league the first year Maddie came over, and then we had a good chance of winning Europe the second year. Unfortunately, I threw an intercept, which didn't do us any favours in extra time. But we still won our fair chunk of games in those 2 years. I really enjoyed working under Matt O'Connor. He was a great coach. He had a different way of looking at the game, which I learned a lot of. He was very different to how Joe trained us, and his philosophy was very different. But it gave me a different outlook on it, which has definitely stood to me over the years. But no, working with Jimmy was brilliant. Like, he's a fantastic guy, great competitor. Goes really hard in every aspect, whether it's in the gym, kicking practice, out in the golf course, he goes pretty hard. And I learned a lot from him as a player. And he was a good few years older than me at the time, and how well he looked after his body. And you can see now he's still playing, he's still at the top of his game. And to learn that as a 24, 25-year-old was brilliant. So I know some people look at that time with Maddie and that I was kind of messing around playing 10 or 12, but I look back, I love that time. It was brilliant. So, I've no regrets, and I could say that about the majority of my career, luckily.
It's good to have that as well. Before we leave Leinster I'm watching The Last Dance, which I presume you're watching yourself and everybody's watching. Yeah. It's just phenomenal, and Jordan, I've never seen anything like it. And I would have been a big Man United fan and just always looked up to Roy Keane and that kind of figure. To have the likes of O'Driscoll and Sexton, who would be in that kind of calibre, I suppose, from Irish rugby, but the two of them look like very different characters. Just give us a little insight into what they're like, both, say, behind the scenes or in the dressing room, because Johnny seems real intense, and he's someone who I would look up to massively, but Brian O'Driscoll seems a little bit more laid back, but behind the scenes, is he very intense as well?
Yeah, like they both have an insatiable appetite to win, regardless of whether it's darts in the dining room or out for a round of golf, or a big training session, and they're fighting for their position, or obviously in games everyone's kind of seeing it on the big stage. They have an ability to flick that switch, and ultimately, like, they'll find a way to win, and that's why the two of them have been so successful, because it's not necessarily perfect what they do. It's not like this, they've got the exact game plan to go to that's going to win every time. They're able to adapt in certain games and find a way to win, and I think that's something we've seen in the Jordan documentary. Like, he'll just find a weak point and just keep going after it. And even like seeing how Jordan challenges people in training. Like, I came through that with Leinster, and to be honest, I just thought every club was like that. And you think, and there were fights in training, and I'm sure there still is. But if someone got punched, they got punched. Now, it was never anything too bad, but it was just the ferocious competitiveness of it. And guys calling each other out. It didn't have to be the coach saying, "Look, you're doing the wrong thing there. Get in line. You're not getting picked." It was other players calling each other out, and that's what's really powerful. It's when it's coming from the player group, and you really get a buy-in that way. But having moved from Leinster, and being in two different clubs, it hasn't been the same. But saying that, it doesn't mean that those other clubs are doing anything wrong. They just have a different way of going about their training week and going through a season.
It's really interesting you say that, Ian, because I would have been playing at a time as well when there was very much like really demanding. You had senior figures in the dressing room, and it was really cutthroat stuff. And as you say, there would have been rows, fights in dressing rooms, which to me was the norm, and it was either sink or swim. You get on with it or you struggle. Whereas obviously I think you look at things now, and I spoke to Dean Rock about this with the Dublin dressing room, and he said something like what you had said there, that the players kind of control the dressing room and will call each other out. And if you're be looking at your peer, you're thinking, well, I'm not pulling my weight here. The lads will be quickly on you and tell you. Sometimes I look now though and think, not just rugby, soccer, all different sports, and maybe it's a society thing as well, it's not just sport, but it's all a little bit too soft or something, or am I wrong?
No, I'd agree with you. Yeah, look, it's a frustration of mine, even the stuff with the WhatsApp groups drives me up the wall. This thumbs up rubbish, I think I remember reading a tweet about Paul Galvin, that he was just saying, does anyone have an honest conversation in sport anymore? It all seems to be done through WhatsApps and thumbs up and praising guys. Yeah, look, there's nothing better than another player pulling up another guy and saying, mate, you're not pulling your weight wrong. You're not putting it in the gym. You're not pushing yourself in training. And in my opinion, it's leading into games and it's setting the wrong culture with the team. Like that said to a guy, and he's either going to react positively or negatively to it. And like, please God, the majority of guys are going to act positively. If they're not, sure, get on with it then, move on to another club or, give up the game. But once they've reacted positively to it and they turn the corner and, the next time you're chatting to them, you're giving them a compliment. Like that compliment has weight with it then because they know where they've come from. And if you're positive the whole time, it doesn't mean anything. There has to be a balance there. There has to have been something really good and actually having worked towards something really, really impressive. And there's the flip side of that. You can't just be a negative person around all the time. Like that's good for no one, especially in like a long season like rugby where you've got 30 odd games. You've got to be able to mix it up. And I find like, the good coaches and the good players are able to do that, to kind of be able to motivate the guys around them in different ways each week.
I agree totally, and it's something that irritates me. I think the advent of social media as well hasn't helped. And you see players after matches and tweeting the fans are great and there's this, that and the other. Yet the following week the fans are probably giving out about them and you don't see them tweeting the fans were great that weekend and all this bullshit at times, There was the great little clip in the Jordan thing, I think it was the last episode, where he's having a go at Steve Kerr and it was a case of, I either stand up to this fella or he's going to walk all over me. And Kerr stood up to him and they had a bit of a Barney and a row. But straight away, he had Jordan's respect straight away. So as you say, I think it's healthy for a dressing room. Would you have felt, having coming through that environment in with the likes of Sexton, those big characters, and then you mentioned here you move on to Bordeaux and to Bristol, would that be something you would have taken on then yourself and brought that into the dressing room, pulling up other lads?
I probably did it a bit too honestly initially, and just thought, look, I can say whatever I want to players because that's how it was in Leinster, and you just got on with it. I saw Fergie come on there, great mate, but Fergie's told me horrific things, and just told me, look, you're supposed to do this on a certain play. You haven't done it. Now get your bloody act together, and it'll give you a fright, and if he could pull you up and say you weren't prepared properly for a training session, and for a good friend to say that to you carries weight. And I just had the same attitude when I went over to France. I had no issue just letting loose on someone who wasn't, in my opinion, doing what they should have been. But the problem with that
what was the reaction to that over there?
Oh, some guys were great, the French kind of come in for a bit of stick about not being fit enough. But some of the fittest guys I've ever come across were over there. Unbelievable runners, unbelievable trainers. They go really, really hard. Part of it was just the guys who were leading it from the top, filtering it down, weren't organised themselves. So you couldn't string it together for, week on week, month on month to be successful over a season. But then there was other guys who couldn't take the criticism at all, I remember in a game losing my head because I wanted the ball to come out to me because we had a big overlap, and one of the tight forwards wanted to pick and go because it was, he thought it was on for him, and he got held up short. Big moment in the game. I lost the head. I said, if I'm calling for that ball, it comes to me, and that would have been fine. To say that when I was with Leinster or Ireland would have been grand, and he took this really personally, and I got to do a big team apology and.
Really,
yeah, and that was tough going at the time. I just couldn't understand it. I was like, it's going to be tough going to go anywhere with this group if they're going to be this sensitive.
Yeah.
But then in other areas they were brilliant, and having to do it in French as well. You had to be a lot more thought through in what you were going to say because you've got limited enough vocabulary at the time, and what you say's got to really count. So that definitely helped me. It kind of made me think a bit more about what I was saying.
Did you enjoy the experience over there? And even though it was short, I think it was only a year, but did you enjoy that?
Yeah.
Was it something that, looking back, you're happy you tried out?
Yeah, absolutely. I loved it. Like, it was a great year. Rugby wise, it was okay. I got off to a good start. Like, we were going really well, kind of up to about November. I think we're sitting second in the league, and I was playing all the games. It was great. And then I picked up a nasty enough groin injury, which held me back. I struggled to really refine form. And then within that time, the kind of relationship with the head coach broke down. So like, that element of it wasn't enjoyable at all. But I was lucky. Like, there's a great group of French lads over there I got on really well with, and there's a good crew of foreigners who I hung out with. And look, it was still a really enjoyable year. I look back on it very fondly.
The chance then, Ian, to come back, and obviously it's to Bristol, but how much of an influence was it the fact that Hugh was laughing in there? Yeah, are you another board member? Yeah,
Brendan Mackin giving the croissants a shout out. Yeah, they didn't do me any favours, Bren. the croissants dipped in chocolate milk was their go-to for breakfast, and Jesus,
horrendous.
I'm just getting into bad habit of it myself.
you need a good fry up, every morning.
Yeah.
That's what they need. But just on that then, Ian, when the chance comes to go back to Bristol, how much of an influence then was it? Because the type of player I think you are is a bit of a maverick, a bit of a, obviously, as I say, you like to express yourself, a bit expansive. And you mentioned working with Cheka, who I think would have liked that in you. Schmidt, as we know, I think is a bit more conservative, whereas Pat Lam used to get rave reviews for the way he had Connacht playing and the brand of rugby. So was that something straight away when you heard they were interested and it was Pat Lam, did that really excite you?
Yeah, no, it did. Part of it was like, Pat's system is actually very structured, but within the structure you're able to express yourself.
Okay.
And, from talking to the guys in Connacht, that was kind of the message I was getting. And I spoke with Pat and kind of enjoyed his, listening to his philosophy on how the game is to be played. And I think his philosophy in a short line is he looks to either go around, over, or through a team. It sounds so simple, but he'll have different ways to do each of those elements. And he's a very good coach. He's an incredibly consistent guy, really hardworking. And he's really, really good at getting a group of 50 guys to do exactly what he wants. So no, it's been great to work underneath him, and I've really enjoyed the 3 years over here.
And obviously the first year you were massively successful getting promoted. I think you were the highest point scorer in the league as well. So it has been really fruitful. And I suppose looking at it now, the 3 years, was there the possibility to stay on in? Because I know now you've signed for Ulster for next year, but was there a possibility to stay on there, or was it always a plan that eventually you will come home here?
No, it was. I felt it was time to try and get back into one of the Irish provinces. If I left it any longer, I think the way that you've got to view the Irish provinces, if you want to be playing for them, you've got to still be aiming to play for Ireland. And I was conscious if I left it another year or two, like, that ship would have sailed. Whereas I feel at 31. If I really catch form, I'll still give it a shot. Now, look, it's going to be a long shot. I'm under no illusions. I'm coming from not having any real form in the book over the last year to having to prove myself. But the great thing in Ireland is with the provinces, if you're playing well, you play well in the Interpros, you play well in Europe, you're going to put your name in the hat. So, look, that's still what motivates me. It's, getting out there and representing your country, and it really excites me being able to go out and play for Ulster. It's going to be incredible, like being back playing in those Interpros and mixing it in Europe. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it's brilliant to hear you say that's obviously what motivates you still, and the fact that you still believe you can get back into the Irish setup, and hopefully it is a case that you do really well and do get back. But you did spend 3 or 4 years obviously in the Irish setup. How do you look back on that time? Obviously you had the Six Nations success. The day I think you came on in Paris when it was the first or second time you'd won in 42 years. You played a huge part, retaining it then the next year. So it was something like the Leinster time. It was a really successful period again with Joe. But do you look back sometimes and think, I think it was 30 caps you had, but do you look back and think there could have been so much more? Or how do you view the whole Irish kind of career that you had so far?
Yeah, I think like most players, they kind of view, oh, I could have had more. I felt I was ready to play. Probably a few games before Decky eventually picked me. But at the same time, I was so grateful that he did give me my first cap. Um, and then under Joe, I think I played the majority of the games when he came in, and I loved it because I knew his philosophy previously with Leinster. I knew what he looked out for in training. Probably most importantly, knew what pissed him off. And
What does piss him off?
not to do that. If you're slacking in any way, like sloppy technique, if he thinks he can do something properly and really well, and you're not doing it, he'll just lose the head with you. And like when he turns on, he's a scary man. I know,
Really?
he smiles a lot for like the media and stuff, but geez, like I used to joke that you'd play with Joe on your shoulder because if you weren't doing what he wanted, you'd nearly hear him. Like,
Okay.
but that was exactly what I needed. I need to be coached that way. I need to be coached hard, and it really suited me. It just kind of drove me on every day, which I loved. And look, the time I had at Ireland, we'd great success. We won a couple of Six Nations. We had a few brilliant tours. Like went over toured Argentina, which was brilliant. Toured South Africa, and then obviously had the World Cup, which was the highlight. We left you with unfinished business, but it was a brilliant experience all the same.
Just with Joe, I suppose like as you said, you had that relationship at Leinster, and he obviously liked you. Then you go into the Irish setup. How approachable was he then when you were in the Irish setup? You were saying earlier with Leinster, he was very open. You could go with ideas, speak to him. Did that kind of veer away then once he became the Ireland manager, or was he still much the same?
Yeah, I suppose I always had a relationship with Joe, and I felt I could say whatever I wanted to him. He was, he gave me great guidance on my game. If he didn't pick me, I always felt like I got honest answers off him. And he gave me something. He gave me clear things to work on, and that's all I wanted. Like I'd rather someone say to me, here, look, you're kicking out of hands not good enough, and you've missed too many tackles on your left side. So go away and work on that. And if you keep the other areas of your game up to the high level and bring those two areas up, you're going to be right in there. And then a month down the line, you're showing him your tackling stats and you're showing him footage of your kicking, and he knows. And he'll probably have something new for you then to work on. But look, that's how
he's ready for you. He knows you're coming.
No, that's how it goes. And I think with Joe, you always earned your selection with him. It was never a rash selection of him putting someone young in front of you, but when he did pick you, it was because you'd bloody earned it, And if you produce for him, he'll stick by you, simple as. And I love that about him. Regardless of what game it was, if someone was producing it in training and did it for him in a game, he'd stick with them. And I was lucky enough to start a load of big games under Joe, and absolutely loved it.
Was the highlight, and you touched on it there a little bit, obviously the World Cup, and I think you came on early in the game against France and basically ran the show and put in an unbelievable performance. Looking back on it, was that the highlight, the highest you've reached really, the fact that it was international level at a World Cup against France and to have such an impact on the game?
Yeah, it probably was. I look back on that. Like, it was a special day, and it's funny. Like with rugby matches, like sometimes they can just go against you, and like it can go terribly, and it mightn't necessarily be because you're a bad player or you're a good player. And then on the flip side of that, you can have games that things just seem to fall into place for you and suits your style of play. You get to sidestep a guy, your pass opens up on another occasion, a kick that suited to you opens up, even, where you're getting the penalties or areas you like kicking from. There's a million things that go into it. And then, the negative side of that, you get all like their best players end up running at you. They run a great play, you get exposed. The winger does a great job covering your kicks. But yeah, that French game, I look back on it very fondly, and I suppose I just got into a good zone, and I felt really comfortable with the game plan we had. Joe had me prepped really well. The guys around me I knew. and it just felt seamless coming on, which was great. Yeah, it's just a pity I didn't get to do it more, I suppose.
And on that end, then you go from the highs of that, and it's like the world's your oyster. You play so well, World Cup, there's a lot of hype around the country, and everybody's looking in from back home. And there's real expectation going into the game against South Africa. To go from the high and then the disappointment of that, like how difficult was that? Or in the week leading up to the South Africa game, did you feel as though like we're in the driving seat here, we really fancy ourselves? Or how was the kind of the build up towards it?
Yeah, like the expectation was that we were hot favourites going into that game. We'd come out of our group top. They kind of struggled, like they were beaten reasonably. Well, they were beaten in a tight game by New Zealand. But other than that, they had an easy enough group. But what killed us was we obviously picked up a good few injuries, like Cawley getting injured. I think Shawnee got suspended. Obviously, Johnny out injured. And then I think we picked up one or two other ones, Tommy Bowe. So, yeah, like you kind of down the spine of your team was a lot of injuries, which obviously unsettled us. But look, we still had the players there that could have definitely won that game and gone on definitely to a final. But it was one of those freak games. They came out, they scored 2 quick tries, which definitely caught us on the hop. And then we played some brilliant rugby to get back into it. And it took a lot out of us to kind of get the game close to draw game. And I remember we definitely had a chance to bloody take the lead. And I still have nightmares about that, just visualising that play and what we could have done. And if we'd gone ahead there, could we have held on? No doubt that we could have. But look, I look back on it. It was a game that didn't go our way, but we battled really hard and gave ourselves a chance to win it, which was quite satisfying. But to be honest with you, I was absolutely devastated for a very long time. It's probably something I've never really got over, to be honest.
Really, yeah?
Yeah, I carry that around me, yeah. Just, if there's 80 minutes I'd look to relive again, that would be it. But sure, look, that's how sport goes. That's why we love it. You can't have it every way. And it kind of keeps you hungry as well.
After that then, I know there was the trip to South Africa, which initially I think you were left out of the squad, but then you travelled and came on.
Yeah.
You played most of the games, but it was around the time of the move to France. This whole ruling on the players that move away and then they're not kind of recognised, they're not going to be picked. How do you feel about that rule? Or do you know going to France at the time, I might not be picked for Ireland now, this is the rule, even though there was an exception for Sexton? I don't think, like my view on it from just a neutral or a fan's point of view is that it should be the best players that are getting picked no matter where they're playing. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, look, the RFU have got to protect themselves as well. To be honest, it was never told to me that I was like not going to get picked when I was away, and I was still in contact with Joe. Now, whether that was just him looking out for me or he was keeping an eye on me to see if he might have needed me while I was away, but he kept in constant contact, letting me know how I was getting on in games and even stuff to work on. But ultimately for me, I wasn't playing well enough to get picked for Ireland. You need to be at the very top of your game to get picked for Ireland. And maybe I was there in my first year. We had Ulster in the Heineken Cup actually, and we beat them home and away in 2 really tough games. And I felt like I was playing, probably well enough to get into the Six Nations squad. But are you going to pick a guy who's playing out of Ireland just to make the squad? No, like it causes too much drama. And if it's someone who's going to be coming in to start in your starting 15 or a really key guy to come off the bench, then they'll probably do it and they'll go, look, it's worth it. And if it means 1 or 2 guys leave, but we're going to win a Six Nations this year, so be it. But are we going to pick a guy who's going to sub 2 games in the Six Nations and then risk losing people off the back of it? No, because it's not worth it. So I'm not saying that that's how the RFU look at it, but ultimately, like, they've got to protect the national team and the provinces, and keeping guys here and being able to manage them physically is a massive asset that they have. And I saw that when I moved away. Even I hadn't had an injury, and then I was in France, and 3 months in, I picked up a nasty one, and I probably would have got over it a lot quicker if I had the Irish medical team looking after me.
Okay. I love your honesty, by the way, and I suppose the move now to Ulster, how exciting is that? I know you mentioned there that you still have plans and it motivates you to get back into the Irish setup, but how weird would it feel when you play against Leinster?
I'd say I'll be good and sore after that one anyway.
You few of them gunning for you, all right, I'd say, yeah.
Yeah. So, look, I've such fond memories of playing in the RDS and you know, all the Interpro games, whether it was Leinster, Munster, Leinster, Ulster, or going out west to play against Connacht, you know, it was, they're without doubt the highlight in the Pro 14, and they were the games that I'd be most excited for, without doubt. So just competing against the best of the best in your country, like that's what it's all about. And you know, it's great that rivalry's still going as strong as ever. Just looking forward to getting back into it.
Someone just sent a text in there in, are you planning on or hoping that you'll be a 10 or 12 at Ulster, or are you bothered?
A 10 is my preferred position, but I'm happy to play 12. Yeah, happy to play 12. You know, I think with my size, it has to be a kind of more of a playmaking role, second set of hands, trying to get the ball to width. And we've seen some teams do that really successfully. And if there's a good ball carrying 13 or wingers who'll carry it good and hard for you, great. But you know, even if you are kind of that second set of hands, you end up having to carry the ball a lot, which is tough going. But the times that I have had the chance to play there, I've loved it. So. Look, I'll be open wherever they want me to play. I'll be happy as long as I'm getting selected.
Before I let you go, the last question, Ian, and I've loved chatting to you. As I say, you're so honest. I love that. Answer me one thing, because as I said, I only appreciate the number 10s in rugby, right? I've no time for anyone else, right? Or maybe the number 9 is a little bit creative as well. As for the rest of them, I've no time for them. When you're fitting the ball, obviously on the little cup, why do you point the pointy bit? Why do you kick the pointy bit? To me, if I was doing that, you'd always have it so that you're hitting obviously the middle of it. But explain that to me.
So basically, so like the way Johnny sets the ball up is quite like the ball's, you know, straight up on the tee, leaning forward slightly. So he's using a different sweet spot in the ball, and in my opinion, the sweet spot that he uses is much smaller than the sweet spot I use. So I tilt the ball forward, and the sweet spot I'm using is right at the bottom of the ball.
But you're not hitting the pointy bit.
I am hitting pointy. I'm hitting just inside the pointy bit.
Okay. Does that not hurt?
Yeah, it does.
But why are you doing it? I'm not telling you, Madigan, how to take kicks. Don't worry.
The balls are miles too heavy. Like, so my foot is shaped like an arc at this stage.
Really? So, because to me, now it might sound like a stupid thing, but it always fast because playing football, I would have taken free kicks, and I'd always appreciate that skill in people. So looking at the lads taking the kicks, and I love the way Owen Farrell takes them. They all have their own style and whatever. Dan Bigger is another one. But I'm looking at yours, and I've often wondered with whatever player, why are they kicking the pointy bit?
Yeah. Well, basically, I used to kick with a similar setup to how Johnny kicked when I was in school, and for the first couple of years that I was out. And Richie Murphy was the kicking coach at the time, and he said to me, looked at me, he goes, to be honest with you, the way you kick the ball, I think you'll be more suited to kicking off a higher tee and using a different sweet spot. And I was very skeptical. I was like, I don't really think I should be changing tees at this stage. You know, I thought I was probably further down the line than I was. And literally on the first kick that I did with this new setup, I was like, we're onto something here. And then I persevered with it then, and it turned my kicking around, you know. So I was very grateful for that.
Yeah, it's amazing, but I'm glad you clarified that for me and answered it.
Yeah. So,
but listen, Ian, you've been an absolute joy to talk to. It's the first time I've spoken to you, and I've loved your honesty, and I love the fact that you're coming back to Ulster and with an aim to get back into the Irish setup, and I really hope you achieve that.
Thank you very much.
So it's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully I'll chat to you soon.
Yeah, great to be on. Thanks a million.
All right, thanks a million, Ian.
Cheers.
See you, pal.
Hey, Bilbo.